Hey, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of the immigration segment. We are blessed to have a guest speaker with us today. Her name is Daphne. Thank you for
Hi.
joining us and joining in on this conversation to comment because from what Melanie's told us, you have a great wealth of knowledge regarding this topic. So we're excited to get into that. We are going to jump into a fun question today, just where we picked up where we left off. And I'm going to ask each of the girls this question. I'm going to leave it to 2 responses. What is your ick in a relationship? 2 icks in a relationship. I will go with, I'm going to give Melanie the first shot.
Is it like an ongoing relationship or
Just in general, like if you were going to scope out a guy, what are your 2 icks that are just
scope out? What are we hunting?
basically, depends.
Wow.
Some women are out there on the prowl. They're hunting for their forever. I'm telling you.
If they don't have a job,
Okay.
because I've had experience where somebody in my family, the fiance was kind of a bum.
I
And
support that
would
girl.
show up for her.
I definitely agree.
Probably be I'd have to think.
One more.
One more.
But say like right off the bat, you go on a date with this guy and he just like has bad breath, has terrible hygiene. Like, would you be like, yeah, that's kind of not me?
Yeah, probably bad hygiene.
That is awesome. Okay, Daphne, you're next.
Yeah, on that note, being able to smell him in a bad way when he's coming near you.
It's so you don't want to remember.
Yeah, no. If you're gonna smell it, better be a good cologne, not BO. And just like somebody that tries to show off way too much.
Okay.
Like,
Oh,
you're too bragging, that means you're trying to lie.
Yeah, true. All right, Helena, what's yours?
Okay, so I've met, I wouldn't say I've met a lot of guys. I've met a few of them that were not really good experiences, needless to say the least. I have to say a few icks of mine, and they're like personal, I wouldn't say like in general, would probably be clinginess and I guess no ambition to better themselves. Those are like 2 big things. Like I'm always looking for I'm always trying to better myself and always trying to like do that.
But the next time you want to go on a date, just let me and Melanie know, and we will screen them for you. We will find out what you need to know, and we will revoke their access to you if we have to, okay? That's all good.
All right. So, in the past, immigration patterns were driven primarily by labor shortages and conflicts. Many immigrants came from specific regions, especially Europe, seeking better opportunities. Today, immigration is much more diverse, with increasing numbers from Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And this is influenced by political instability, globalization, and economic opportunity. Furthermore, contemporary immigration often focuses on refugee resettlement, family reunification, and skilled labor programs, contrasting with earlier waves that primarily consisted of unskilled laborers. Immigration is pivotal in sustaining economic growth, filling labor gaps, and contributing to cultural diversity. It enables countries to address demographic challenges, especially in aging populations where immigrant labor is crucial for maintaining workforce levels. Immigrants also contribute economically to entrepreneurship, innovation, and public finances through taxes. The economic impact of immigration is generally positive because it contributes to gross domestic product growth and job creation. Research indicates that a 1% increase in immigration is associated with a negligible decrease in native employment, which suggests that immigrants complement rather than directly compete with native workers. Despite its benefits, immigration can also present challenges, especially regarding housing, public services, and integration. The influx of new populations can strain local resources if not managed properly. High levels of immigration can also lead to xenophobia and social tensions, particularly in many groups that feel culturally displaced or economically threatened. The debate on whether or not immigrants are more prone to committing crimes is a hot topic, especially recently. Studies indicate that immigrants, specifically first-generation immigrants, commit more crimes at lower rates than native-born citizens do. However, later generations show various outcomes, all influenced by socioeconomic factors. Public perceptions can also diverge from these realities, all fueled by political rhetoric and media portrayals.
I will pick up there. Okay. The current administration is being stricter for immigration laws for several reasons, particularly drugs, human trafficking, and terrorist attacks are a few of the many concerning topics. There's a significant concern about people crossing the border, coming from other countries, and bringing drugs such as fentanyl, heroin, methamphetamine, and cocaine into our country. I do fully support being stricter as a result of that. Fentanyl is produced in China and is killing U.S. citizens daily. Here, local, just in the last week, I was telling Melanie and Helena about this. They found enough fentanyl to kill 270,000 people. It was just over, I want to say, a pound of fentanyl, if I remember.
Wasn't it in like some incha burritos, like wrapped up like in burritos or something like that?
It was definitely packaged well. I wouldn't know what that stuff looks like. It was actually like a bluish purple color in the news article that I seen, but I actually thought that it was white. So I wouldn't know it if I seen it.
I think white's cocaine.
There's a form of they're coming and they're lacing and they're doing whatever. So I think they'll
Okay.
dye it sometimes to make it look like something it's not. Like they're proposing a pill as, let's say oxycodone or whatever, and it's then laced with fentanyl. Which leads me into my next topic. Not just fentanyl, but other drugs are laced with fentanyl. They're putting fentanyl on objects such as dollar bills, napkins, etc., and placing them on the ground, placing them within your door handle, which people then pick up, and just a speck
Yeah, so it can look like white powder.
yeah, just a speck of fentanyl can kill somebody who doesn't use fentanyl, because obviously if you use it, you develop a tolerance for it. It is unfair for U.S. citizens to continue allowing these people to flow freely into our country with such evil agendas, and their view is the only way to stop it is to close the border and crack down on immigration policies. I think we're currently in a place where migrants are welcome, but then I've changed that statement because it's put to a halt right now with people coming into our country unless they're approved by Homeland Security and another department. I'll get to that topic in a little bit. But you have to come in the documented way, which, even prior to that being put to a halt to inviting, accepting migrants into our country, I definitely think you should come in the right way, because if not, I was just discussing this with the girls yesterday, you're probably not going to be treated fairly, and that never goes well for anybody. There are endless stories currently about them illegal aliens raping children and people across the U.S. Hopefully, by cracking down on the immigration policy, we can get rid of those who are committing crimes. There was a statement made in 2025. We expect that drug traffickers will continue to adulterate cocaine and methamphetamine to make them more potent and addictive. This again is from that Homeland Security document, the Homeland Threat Assessment. Looking into 2025, the threat of violence from the U.S.-based violent extremists, including DVEs, who are motivated by various ideologies and FTO-inspired homegrown violent extremists, will remain high. The threat will continue to be characterized primarily by lone offenders or small cells motivated to violence by a combination of racial, religious, gender, or anti-government grievances, conspiracy theories, and personalized factors. We are particularly concerned about the likelihood of violence motivated by developing domestic and global events, including the 2024 election cycle and the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. Some violent extremists embrace multiple, sometimes competing motivations, challenging our ability to identify their potential targets in advance, because their pre-attack statements online are often unrelated or only loosely related to the targets they ultimately choose. So right now, like the Tesla, I don't want to say protest, but the Tesla
Boycott?
what would you call that? The Tesla boycott and the Tesla targeting. Like I just watched a video yesterday of a guy who I would assume was probably a professional. He was in his 40s. He keyed a Tesla, and the guy caught him because he has surveillance cameras on his car. And he approaches the guy and asked him, "Why did you do that?" Well, it didn't leave a mark. He's like, "I'm not concerned about the mark. I want to know, why did you do that?" He said, "Well, obviously I have something against Elon Musk." He goes, "So what does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with my vehicle?" This is a guy that's, a U.S. citizen, though. That's not illegals, but their theory is, as they continue striking down on this, the people that are involved, they're going to retaliate towards them, which, from their view, rightfully so. I'm not saying it's right, but they're looking at, well, you're changing my livelihood, so I'm going to retaliate, right? Anyways, that's some of the violent extremist stuff.
Sorry, just to make sure I understand. You're saying that we're changing U.S. livelihood or immigrants' livelihood?
No, I'm giving you an example of, like, for example, the guy that's a U.S. citizen, he's retaliating towards Teslas because he has an issue with Elon, right? So that's a U.S. citizen already retaliating over just some policy changing that will affect him. They're saying that their theory behind the immigrants creating the violent crimes and whatever, they're expecting it to increase because of them striking down on these laws.
Well, I think it's hard to say that because, a crime that is not dependent on the race so much as it is the society and the culture behind it. But we stereotype it as race because those types of races, part of certain cultures, do commit more crimes. But that's because we've forced them to become that way. Like African Americans being, in black neighborhoods, poor. There's lots of crime, but that's because we've kept them poor and kept them in ghettos and stuff like that in the past.
To an extent, but I feel like I kind of didn't grow up in the greatest neighborhood in my older, later teenage years. But I mean, I got out of there, so I wouldn't say necessarily that we've kept them there. I think there have been some things that's hindered their growth throughout times, but
I meant like the mindset, like because they grow up, and I work with troubled youths a lot, and they grow up thinking that they can't do anything other than like trade jobs or go back to the streets or sell drugs and stuff like that. Like it truly is a problem. It's like it's not that they're physically trapped. It's more like they're financially and mentally trapped. Like they feel like they can't escape that. They can't break the system because the system is made to make them poor. Like public school isn't made to make you break your class. It's made to make more workers, especially in America.
yeah, I went to First Coast, and it was primarily a black school. And a lot of the kids that got out of there, like you said, they just stayed in the streets. I mean, I will say this, I see a lot more financial assistance now, like asking, are you Native American or whatever, or, African American, whatever. And I wonder to myself, obviously I'm not African American or black or anything that would consider within that, but why do they ask that question? Are they allowing them more funding? What are they do, or are they using it to discriminate against them? It's one of the two.
I would say it's a little bit of both. It's kind of hard to say it's black or white because it's kind of it's morally gray. Like that's what I'm saying. It's very gray in that gray area. It is made to help those who have lesser. Now there are people that take advantage of that, and there have been claims. I haven't researched enough, but there have been claims where white people that are Caucasian or white are saying that they're don't have as the same benefits as other people, but it's all about perspective, and I think it's a really complicated topic to talk about. But then again, I know with the new Trump administration, they're planning on doing away with a lot of these programs, so hard to say how long they're going to be around.
Yeah. I just wonder in terms of like, what are they doing? They doing with that information? I filled it out on a lot of college applications, a lot of college documents.
Probably honestly research based, I would say. I don't really think they can. I mean,
Well, that's why
maybe
because like if you're discriminating them just because they're African American or whatever, that's wrong. If you're
I'm sure they've used that data nowadays to find people for like ICE has probably to find people that are illegal.
That's true. How deeply immersed is immigration in our society? Immigration is deeply embedded in many societies, more specifically in multi-ethnic nations like the U.S., where immigrants and their descendants account for a significant portion of the population. Diversity is a huge factor in cultural enrichment, but also challenges in societal integration and cohesion. How would it impact us immigrants who were all to be deported? If all immigrants were deported, substantial labor. I don't know if I understand this question.
Like if we were, because remember they're trying to deport all the immigrants. I think the question was, well, how would it affect our society if we were just to deport all immigrants? How do you define who is an immigrant and who isn't? Because we're all immigrants technically, except for Native Americans.
Right. So they're trying to deport legal and illegal?
Well, that's where I'm saying, then where's the boundary? Because remember, they're also taking some, if it's, how do you know who's legal and who is illegal? Based, because they're looking at it based, some people judge based on how people look, right? Rather than actually, because you can't look at documents. Like there was that one guy, right, who was here on a visa card, like he was supposed to be, right? And they just deported him. And without, like, they grabbed him and they threw him and he's in a prison and he was legally allowed to be here. See what I'm saying?
Was a DUI or no?
No, this is the guy with the makeup artist guy, right?
Oh, okay.
That he's stuck in a prison right now and his case manager can't find him.
Wow. So as of right now, they're not deporting legal and illegal. We're just exploring this question just for.
Yeah. It's just there's like, so like hypothetically, if we were to deport all immigrants, how would it impact our society?
Yes. Okay, I understand now. If all immigrants were deported, substantial labor shortages in various sectors that rely on immigrant labor would immediately impact the U.S. It would lead to increased wage pressure and economic downturns in industries like agriculture services that depend heavily on immigrant workers. Who would fill those jobs if the immigrants left the U.S.? If many immigrants were to leave or be deported, there would most likely not be enough native workers to fill the resulting labor shortages, especially in sectors that require lower skilled workers, which immigrants primarily fill. Many employers face challenges in recruiting and retaining a workforce, which pushes wages upward and affects consumer prices.
Yeah, I would say like the construction workers are like a lot of construction hired help you're talking about is mostly immigrants or people that are here on visas, and it's hard manual labor. So those hard manual labor jobs are there and they will do it for a cheaper price because they can't, unlike Americans who have the ability to barter, or I guess I don't want to say barter, compromise for a price, right? Because we're all spoiled. We are. they're here to work to make money, and like I know there are plenty of people that come to America to make money that are foreign because they make more money, but they'll do it for a cheaper price because in their home country they're getting paid even less.
Yeah. And they will work 3 times as hard. So he did it for a
Oh
third.
yeah.
We'll work 3 times as hard and get it done in like 2 days. I mean, he laid our flooring, he did our trim, he did our paint, all of that, interior and exterior, for $5,600. I couldn't get anybody to lay these floors for less than $3,000. I'm talking about trim through my entire home. 1,400 square foot inside and out. That's cheap money. So I agree that it would push the wages up for sure. I don't know the details in terms of if there's not enough workers to fill the resulting labor shortages. I don't know what the status of unemployment is or anything like that. I know that I see people all the time looking for jobs, but I feel like they kind of have lack of network.
I can see right now real quick and get a status of unemployment. Let me see.
Yeah, and I think it's also state dependent. Like in a state like Florida, we have so much landscaping and so much growth in landscaping. And most of the companies here, I'm a community manager, so we hire landscapers to maintain the properties. Most of their crews aren't from here.
Right.
And they're the only ones willing to be out there in 100-degree heat for the entire day mowing and edging lawns.
Yeah.
And so if that entire demographic is gone, yeah, the landscaping businesses would be hurting significantly because they wouldn't have enough crews to go around.
Yeah.
Okay. They're saying the national unemployment rate changed a little over a month at 4.1%, but was 0.2 percentage points higher than in February. They're saying that it increased only in 3 states and essentially unchanged in 47. But that was as of February. You know, in March they did a bunch of layoffs from the IRS and from government positions. So I expect that to change, especially since a lot of those key roles, like, you know, those people that were in those roles were career long people. They weren't like, it wasn't like hired help or like temporary help. So, you know, you have to wonder how it's going to affect or trickle down if things aren't getting done in the government because they don't have enough people. You know,
And
who's
for
going to replace those people?
Daphne, like to your point too, same with Helena's, those wages are going to go up. Because, like you said, there's not many people that are willing to go out there in 100-degree heat or to work like all I just told you guys that was done in like 2 or 3 days. All of that at my house. Like, there's nobody's going to do that. I'm pretty sure it's $1 a minute for a friend of mine charges, that was like 5 years ago, $1 a minute for lawn services. That can add up when you're talking about edging and cutting your bushes and all that. He could be there for 3 hours. That 3 times 6 is 180, like $180 versus a $40 cut, you know? And these guys that are licensed and insured, they'll go hire these guys, especially these Mexican guys for like framing stuff. They work harder than anybody else for probably half the price.
Oh yeah, and you have to wonder, it's not just going to affect that. You're talking about those that work in the farm. Everything's going to get expensive because we don't have enough people. There's a shortage. So that stuff, if you want it on time and everything, like they're going to charge a price for it because they have to work 10 times harder just to get everything. And you're talking about waste of resources, all this food that they're not going to be able to farm, the waste. It's going to be.
Think about if you have a crew of immigrants and you have to get rid of them because they get deported or whatever. You're going to have to hire new help, but they're not going to work for the same wages. So that will contribute to a price increase because you're going to have to fund your salaries as well as paying for the product and obviously make $1 or $2 on it or how, you know, make profit on it. So that would contribute to things going up for sure.
Well, companies are also going to suffer too because remember they're hiring people for a cheaper price rather than the price they should be getting paid for. And you're talking they're also going to have to put stuff in place so that they can protect their employees because you're talking about citizens now. You're not talking about, not saying that citizens should have more protection than immigrants. They don't get as much, immigrants don't get as much protection from the law as citizens would.
Right. They're not constitutionally protected until they're, I want to say,
naturalized.
They're not constitutionally protected as much as we are. I just researched that earlier for those questions. But that's a scary thought because, again, if you're hiring U.S. citizens, they're not going to work for the price they did. So it is going to affect the businesses. Good luck paying those guys.
Because a lot of the manual labor, constructions and out in the fields and on, they don't always hire documented people either, which means they can get them even at a lower rate than the normal immigrants that have come here properly.
Yes.
Because they don't have to then worry about their health care, their taxes. They don't have to have the HR burdens. So they can give them basically nothing and really keep their costs low by hiring undocumented people.
No work
when it comes to that. So that would change drastically.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know they pay them in cash because they don't have to pay them. They don't have to log or record it, so they just pay them in cash because you can't track cash,
Yeah.
so they can't be taxed on it either.
Right.
Those guys are so happy too. They are so glad they got a job. They are so glad. I mean, I don't know. I think it definitely would affect, like you said, Daphne, the labor workers for sure. Construction, lawn care, and good luck. You might have to pay 3 guys to do what that one guy would do because he was that grateful for his job.
Good luck for
Sometimes-
I-4 work ever being done. Good luck for I-4 work ever being done.
Yeah.
It takes as long as it is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
it takes a long time for road work. It's crazy.
Could you imagine
Oh
seeing
yeah.
South Florida if they got rid of all of the crews of immigrants that do the lawn work down there?
I can't imagine how nightmarish Orlando would be. I would literally cry.
There are a lot of industries that really truly are very immigrant based. I mean, as stereotypical as it sounds, nail salons and a lot of barbers and stuff, there are some industries that are just so done by our immigrant population that would
Yes.
be definitely struggling.
Yeah.
What would happen to all the Mexican restaurants? Where would I get queso at?
Right?
Where am I getting?
Very important.
Okay, so in margarita,
Don
come
Juan's
on.
Don Juan's would not be the same.
Oh my gosh, you know what else I just thought about? The
What?
Thai restaurant would close.
Who?
The Thai restaurant.
Oh yeah.
And you know I like Thai. That's
You
my
love Thai. She talks
Yeah.
about it every session.
yeah. I mean, I'm just saying I'm against it already. Don't deport everybody, okay? The guys that are causing the crimes, do what you need to do, but please don't let those people go back to Thai. I need that in my life.
Priorities, priority.
We need
There's
nice lawns, Mexican food, and we need Thai. Gosh, why are immigrants discriminated against if we are all descendants of immigrants? That's a great question. Discrimination often results from economic competition, cultural biases, and nationalistic sentiments. Historically, narratives have misrepresented the contribution that immigrants have made, leading some to view newcomers as a threat to socioeconomic status or cultural identity. The hypocrisy is apparent in the selective memory of societies that celebrate their immigrant roots while they enforce restrictive policies against new arrivals. Okay, let me ask y'all's opinion on something. I feel like we go for, first of all, in a communications and media degree, I have learned that I don't trust anything that anybody says on the news. I don't care who's saying it. I don't care what they're talking about. I don't care. I don't believe any of it. I pretty much only follow independent journalism. But I will say this. Do you guys agree that it seems like when there's an agenda, whether we're trying to talk about, white thugs are, just all across America, just burning down places or, killing people or whatever. And then there's, blackmail, this, and that, whatever, all across America. And then you'll see like illegal immigrant kill somebody or illegal immigrant rape somebody. Do you feel like that shapes the minds? Because I do feel like
yes.
it overwhelms
It-
me. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
I think due to the 24/7 news, we have a tendency to make things bigger than they seem. Because I promise you, right now, somebody is getting killed. Somebody is getting our word, and they're getting. It's just like, and it's not always an immigrant. It's actually more so the citizens. I have to look up the data for that. But I find it hard. I feel like I find it hard to believe that, it's just one of those things. You have to remember the media is a company too. They're trying to make money. And they do
Right.
that based on views. And so at that time, whatever they feel like is getting them the most views, they're gonna hype up a lot.
Mhm.
Like, especially, you ever notice like during elections, like the MSNBC and Fox News literally at each other's throats constantly, like, and they say, and then like right after the election dies, then you'll notice, depending on who wins the election, one or the other will get quiet. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, they're
Yes.
and I also want to, on a separate side note real quick, so we talked about nationalistic sentiments. I want to make sure that the audience understands the difference between nationalism and patriotism. So there's two different types. While patriotism and nationalism both involve love and loyalty to one's country, patriotism is a general love for one's country, while nationalism is more intense, often exclusive devotion to a nation and its interests, potentially prioritizing it above all else. Now, that probably sounds kind of extreme, but nationalism is, while it's not necessarily bad, too much of anything can be bad. So, like, the definition of patriotism is feeling love and loyalty and attachment to one's country, often encompassing a sense of pride and duty. Its focus is more positive towards its country and its people and its values. For an example, supporting your country's team in a sporting event or volunteering for a local cause, right? So as a general positive connotation with civic engagement and national unity, while nationalism is a strong identification of one's nation and belief in its superiority or importance, often leading to the desire for national self-determination and independence. It focuses on strong sense of national identity, often based on shared culture, language, or history. An example would be advocating for policies that prioritize national interests over international cooperation, or promoting specific national culture as superior to others. So the connotation can be both positive and negative depending on how it's used and in context, but in extreme cases it can lead to xenophobia, discrimination, and conflict. So you can see, I just want you guys to understand in this watching the audience that, you know, while it's not bad to be nationalistic, you want to do it in a positive light more so than a negative light, because it does draw a line sometimes. It can be pretty disheartening for some other people because it's not like America, it feels more complicated because we have so many different cultures. So.
It's interesting though. Like there is so many different cultures.
I love being able to see diverse cultures and be able to experience that. That's one of the reasons I want to travel the world one day. I want to get to meet people and see what their culture is like and participate part of it and get to learn the best parts of that culture. I do want to learn about the bad parts because, you know, it's important to learn about history and why that ended up happening, you know, certain things. But I feel like overall I would like to learn the more positive aspects of it. I feel like it just brings I feel like it brings me closer to the truth.
Yeah. I want to taste all the different foods.
You want to travel to Thai, don't you?
Definitely want to go to Thailand and eat some fresh Thailand food. But my friend that went there said, Devin, I think you'd love the food, but you've got to get rid of your food phobias. She's like you're sitting there at the stand and there's roaches that crawl, you know, on the stand and off the stand. She's like, that's just normal. They have cockroaches and stuff there, which I didn't realize were like super, super popular and like.
Nope. I'm sorry. I draw the line. That is the one part of culture I will not eat is bugs.
Yeah.
No,
Bugs.
thank you. After seeing a worm cut out of a cricket that was encapsulated in a pop in a pop, not a popsicle, what's it called? Lollipop, and it spit out a worm in its butt and it was already dead. I'm done. I ain't eating no bugs. I'm not catching no cases over here. Absolutely not.
Your homework is to look up worms and pork chops. Maybe you shouldn't. If you love pork chops, you don't need to look it up.
I'm a Puerto Rican. Now you got me working.
I didn't eat pork chops for like 4 years. I'm not playing.
I don't think I should.
I eat it now. Don't look it up if you eat pork chops. I'm not revisiting.
Well, it's in raw and undercooked meats. So
yeah, but I don't
like,
care.
well, girl, it depends on where you're getting it from. Like,
Which is
any meat
why
can get
I-
contaminated.
I
I
encourage.
don't want to know. My parents make that way too much.
I encourage all to purchase farm fresh meat where you know what's in the stuff.
When you're talking about traveling though, like,
Nobody
you know,
wants to
not
do
every
that.
country has the FDA standard, whatever health department that we have monitoring food service. Like my roommate is from Mexico and she's like, yeah, they just like pop up the meat on the side of the thing and scrape it off and it's been like, I'm like, you mean the meat's been out all day with like no health code or anything and they just saw off a piece for you when you go up? What? Like that? Yeah.
No wonder they boiled everything.
I've seen stuff like that. Because, like I said in the first segment, I watched a lot of reality TV and I watched 90 Day Fiancé with my mom, and they show all this stuff about the culture too and what they do there. And, like, there is, like, food and stuff sitting out there all day, like fish, meat, and then
Right.
you still eat that.
Isn't that something that they claimed in China before COVID started? That it was like a pangolin or something like that, and it was a meat market or something, or a fresh market that where COVID first started. I remember hearing about that. I don't know if it's true or not, but something along those lines.
Terrifying. Daphne, I bet your roommate can make some really great food. I bet all of you probably eat very interesting things that I would totally devour. Maybe we should do a what do you call it? What do
A
you call
cooking podcast. A cooking podcast.
it? We can't do a cooking podcast or a virtual potluck.
I don't mind doing that. I cook for my kitchen's out of commission right now, so I can't cook, unfortunately. Sad face.
We'll have to.
But
some of the stuff she talks about
do
eating, I'm like,
HelloFresh.
You do HelloFresh, really? Okay.
I do. I cook. I teach myself how to cook.
You go, girl. Okay. Why do we not acknowledge that we are all immigrants? Nationality versus patriotism. Okay. The failure to acknowledge that we are all immigrants stems from the nationalistic ideas that prioritize a singular narrative of the native identity. These perspectives often foster exclusion since nationalism emphasizes loyalty to the state rather than group histories. This usually leaves a tension between celebrating multicultural identities and adhering to a patriotic narrative that only marginalizes certain groups. Wow.
Yeah, as I said, there's some bad sides to nationalism. Like there are some people that are like, America's so great, and make America great again. Sorry, no, not trying to call anybody, but stuff like that. It's in a sense of nationalistic ideal. Like where we think we're the best, and we're honestly not. There is no such thing as the best country. It is just a country.
Certainly not right now with all this inflation. It ain't.
Expensive eggs were. Did you know they were selling? Did you hear a crazy story? Speaking of how expensive stuff was, how expensive eggs were. Okay, did you hear that realtors are giving everyone a free box of eggs when they buy a house? I was like, are you for real?
Girl, I
Then
hope the whole box, like 5 cartons.
they used to give away free TVs. We have eggs apparently equivalent to getting free TVs when people move in now.
That's like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Remember we passed a lumber truck on the interstate and I'd be like, that's the man with the cold. Because lumber prices went up so high. Remember that during COVID? The lumber shortages?
I do remember.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like you had gold if you had lumber. You want to give me some lumber? Okay. Merry Christmas. How is the NRA affected? The NRA is the National Rifle Association, for anybody that doesn't know, has historically focused on advocacy for gun rights in the context of individual liberties. Immigration can influence many discussion revolving around self-defense and public safety. Narratives can link immigrants to violence, which drives policy discussions that affect guns and rights. Narratives can link immigrants to violence, which drives policy discussions that might affect gun rights and regulations. It often contributes to social fears surrounding immigration, which complicates the intersection of firearm advocacy with immigrant rights. Not gonna lie to you, what is on the news, what they're painting the picture of, all these stories about, immigrants killing somebody, I could certainly see where the media is painting them in a bad light and kind of almost exaggerating things more than they are, or at least it's bringing to light things we're not thinking of it.
I feel like it's really trying to, I don't know, like give something, what's the word I'm looking for? Appeal to public sentiment. You know what I'm saying? Depending on what news you watch. Obviously, because depending on what news you watch, right? Depends on where you skew and your political beliefs and values and opinions, right? And, we could probably see some of this back in the early civil rights movement where they were painting African American people as these people that commit lots of crimes, right? I'm sure we could, I'd have to do some more research about it, but I'm sure that, like, with the propaganda, right, and stuff like that I'm sure it was very much so there as it is now today, except towards more Latino immigrants than African Americans. Chopped up.
The next question is, what about Elon Musk? Elon Musk is a prominent immigrant entrepreneur who embodies the potential contributions that skilled immigrants can bring to innovation and economic growth. His experiences and accomplishments highlight the duality of immigrant narratives. Immigrants are celebrated for transformative contributions to technology, while facing scrutiny regarding immigrant policies and labor practices at his companies. His global perspective also emphasizes how interconnected national economies are in a rapidly globalizing world. By the way, he's like the richest man in the world, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he is. I don't know if that's true right now because I know his value tanked after what happened to the election and everything. I can double check.
Why is Elon Musk, who is an immigrant, allowed to stay in the U.S. while other immigrants are being deported?
It is Elon Musk, by the way. He's worth $342 billion.
Elon Musk, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
Okay.
I'm like worth $342.
Oh,
How about the billion?
Yeah, I might be in the negative. We don't know yet.
Right, add some zeros.
I'm worth
Like
$3.
$3.42.
3 pennies.
That
Get
is
your coppers
gold.
over here.
Okay, why is Elon Musk, who is an immigrant, allowed to stay in the U.S. while other immigrants are being deported? Well, he's probably legal. Or he is legal. He has to be legal. Elon Musk can stay in the U.S. because he's a naturalized U.S. citizen and originally immigrated through legal employment-based visas. His immigration journey highlights why some immigrants can wait while others face deportation. Here's a breakdown. How Elon Musk immigrated to the U.S. He was born in South Africa. Musk first moved to Canada on a student visa and obtained Canadian citizenship. He then immigrated to the U.S. through an F1 student visa to study at the University of Pennsylvania. After graduating, he obtained an H-1B work visa and an EB-5 investor visa, leading to a green card. Eventually, Musk became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 2002, meaning he cannot be deported unless he commits a serious crime that leads to denaturalization. Why are other immigrants facing deportation? Many immigrants do not have a clear legal pathway to citizenship like Musk did. Some legal immigrants, green card holders, and visa holders can be deported for reasons such as committing certain crimes. Helena, that goes back to the guy that had 2 DUIs in less than a year.
But we'll talk about that later with the other cases, y'all, so you know. But that's
Yeah.
what she's referencing to.
You have to abide by these guidelines or you're out, apparently. I didn't
I mean,
know.
think about it. That's any country you go to. So, like, if you're going to, I made the early reference. You go to Singapore, right? You gotta follow their laws and rules. Otherwise, they'll send you back. Like, you can't stay. Like, you're not.
Yeah, you might end
Makes
up in prison.
sense.
That's me. I might end up in prison. I might say something I don't
You
mean.
better not litter or spit out any gum.
That's
in
what I'm saying.
Singapore.
I ain't going nowhere. I stay right here in America, so I'm a liability. Okay? Okay. I'm just being honest with myself, okay? Some legal immigrants, green card holders, or visa holders can be deported for reasons such as committing certain crimes, violating visa conditions, that would be overstaying longer than you were admitted for, losing asylum or refugee protections. Undocumented immigrants often face deportation because they lack legal status even if they have lived in the U.S. for years. They are risky business, okay? Musk benefited from high-skilled and investment-based visa programs, prioritizing wealthy or highly educated individuals. U.S. immigration law is often more lenient towards high-skilled workers, investors, and entrepreneurs than refugees or low-skilled workers. Many deportations involve immigrants who entered without proper documentation or whose visas have expired. In short, Musk could stay in the U.S. because he followed a legal path, acquired citizenship, and benefited from policies favoring high-skilled immigrants. Other immigrants may face deportation due to legal status issues, visa violations, or changes in immigration policy. So does he get to stay because he is wealthy enough to stay? Open-ended question. I think he's going to get to stay because the man is smart. Like, I don't know this, so I'm just observing from outside. I think he's on the spectrum. I think he might have Asperger's. I don't know anything about the man personally, but I think he has Asperger's or some sort of autism. I mean that, like the way he speaks. If you've ever watched Dating on the Spectrum, he reminds me of the guy with Asperger's.
I feel like a lot of millionaires or billionaires have something special about them.
Very, like, very special. And I mean, he is smart in terms of like SpaceX and whatever, all of his things he's got going on. He is very intelligent, but like my brain don't work that way. So you keep that.
I also realized today because my mom just brought it up. She was like, "You know, he invented PayPal, right? He started that. I don't even know that.
I forgot about that. That was
Like
like
that blows my mind."
that was like the first form of Venmo.
Yeah.
He is to blame for why I'm not worth $348 billion.
Okay.
Way too many PayPal transactions.
Oh Lord. Oh, that's good.
So, changes to the laws of immigration as of 2025. In light of our new president's enactments concerning immigration, the report outlines significant changes to immigration law under President Trump's second administration, focusing on stricter enforcement, deportation efforts, and limiting access to humanitarian relief. Key changes include birthright citizenship restrictions. A new executive order attempts to eliminate birthright citizenship for children of undocumented parents or those on temporary visas. Multiple legal challenges have been filed. Number 2 is border closure and enforcement. Orders have been issued to close the southern border, prevent asylum claims, and increase military involvement. Number 3 is increased deportation and detention. ICE has been given higher quotas for daily arrests, and detention facilities, including Guantanamo Bay, have been expanded for immigration purposes. Number 4 is limiting immigration benefits. Humanitarian parole and work permits for undocumented immigrants have been restricted. Administration also aims to limit asylum and refugee protection. And last but not least, number 5 is legal challenges and constitutional concerns. Several lawsuits have been filed challenging these measures, citing violations of the 14th Amendment, due process, and international asylum laws. I didn't know about most of this stuff. I've heard little bits here and there in the news, but a lot's happened.
A lot has happened.
Yeah, they don't go into real depth about the seriousness or the gravity of the situation when it comes to the laws being changed because they change so quickly or they sit in Congress for so long that, you forget about it. Like, I know they talked about it a long time ago and I honestly thought it had already happened, but remember they were supposed to do it with the time change? That's still sitting in Congress. So we're not supposed to have daylight savings time anymore. There's a bill up for it for us to get rid of it, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I am for getting rid of it. I want the long days. Let me ask y'all something. Humanitarian parole and work permits for undocumented immigrants have been restricted. No different than you could falsify printing a high school diploma. Totally ridiculous and fraud. How are they going to confirm that people are not doing like fake IDs, like a fake visa? I don't know what a visa even looks like, to be honest, but how are they going to make sure that it's not like a fake visa? Because, I mean, if I was here balling uncontrollably, working for lawn care or construction or doing whatever I was doing, I mean, if you were about to deport me, if I didn't have the, morals and values I do right now, and I just wanted to stay, who's to say they're not going to create some false documentation? There's a workaround, I guess.
Bring up a valid point. I didn't even think of
Like,
that.
let me see. What does a visa look like?
It looks like this, Devin.
Yeah, you could absolutely print one of them. So,
Do you think it would be something like I forget what it is, but like when you work like any minimum wage job, they tell you how to tell the difference between like dollar bills and fake dollar bills. It could be something in the printing. It's specific paper for
As
somebody who's worked in, CVS and I worked for them, it's really hard to distinguish a fake ID from a real ID unless you have like there's like a special tool you can use like the light to check thing. Like you would have to be extensively trained on it. Like you would have to be active. I promise you, when you're at a checkout line and you've got a line on it, you're not really looking.
yeah.
You're like, do you have it? If you have it and then you see a brief glance of it, I got it. Cool. And moving on. Because you're moving on to the next thing. You're not really concerned about whether this is this. Like, occasionally there would be red flags that would pop up, like when it comes to minors and stuff like that. Like, you could tell if somebody's too young to buy something. Then you'd be like, where's your ID? You get so much hash from older people being like, why do you need my ID? Can't you see how old I am? I'm like, I get that. But my job requires me to check you.
That's crazy.
Prompted the Trump administration to revoke the humanitarian parole program, and how does this affect migrants from Venezuela, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cuba? The Trump administration revoked the humanitarian parole program as part of its broader effort to restrict immigration and close the southern border. The administration framed the move as necessary to prevent the misuse of the parole system, arguing that it was being used to bypass standard immigration processes. The decision was included in the January 20th, 2025 executive order on securing our borders, which sought to end broad humanitarian parole programs, including those benefiting migrants from Venezuela, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cuba. The effects on migrants from Venezuela, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cuba include the loss of legal pathway to the U.S., the revocation shuts down a critical legal entry option for migrants fleeing economic instability, political repression, and violence, increased risk of deportation. Migrants who previously qualified for parole but are now in the U.S. without another legal status may face detention and removal. Stranded at the border, many migrants who were in transit under the parole program are now stuck in Mexico or other countries, uncertain about their future. Strained U.S.-Mexico relations. Mexico had agreed to accept deported migrants under the previous parole framework, but its cooperation may change as more migrants are turned away. Legal challenges. Immigrant rights groups have already filed lawsuits arguing that the administration is unlawfully restricting humanitarian protections. So I just want to quick comment. We're already seeing some of this happen when it comes to deteriorating relationships, as when we talk about our next topic with tariffs and stuff, and talking about people that are visiting Mexico or staying or living in Mexico that aren't technically legal yet, that are Americans, are getting sent back to the country as well. Yeah, I remember hearing about it on the news, but they were like, yeah, they're sending them. We're like, okay, so you want to send our stuff back, so we'll send your stuff back. We don't want you guys here. And then I remember Canada made like a 2-week kind of stay period or something like that. You can't stay longer than 2 weeks or something like that, and then they kick you out. I was like,
That's
that's
wild.
nuts.
But I think, if we're going to do it to them, they need to do it to us. I absolutely agree. Like within
Fair.
the time frame, unless you're on vacation, coming to, contribute to our tourism, you are no more welcome here than we are in your country illegally and not documented.
Right.
I think
'Cause
that's
I think
fair.
most of us grew up knowing if we ever wanted to move to another country, we would have to follow their procedures to do so.
Yeah.
You know, I can't just hop on a plane tomorrow and decide I'm going to go to somewhere in Europe for the next 3 months of my life. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things you have to do.
Mhm.
So, vice versa, we would expect it to be done here in the US too. If you want to cross our border and be here, great, but do anything that we would do to cross the border to go the opposite way.
Yeah, I
So,
kind of feel like we're a little looser than a lot of people on allowing people to be here. I feel like in America, I mean, I'm obviously comfortable and used to being here. I am petrified to go anywhere else because I'm petrified of their rules. If I know that if I say a certain thing, you're going to put me in a jail or a prison, that's petrifying to me that my speech could land me in prison. So I damn sure ain't going to come to your country illegally and expect to stay there and be treated as an everyday person that has a right to, or I guess you could say is legally there. I'm petrified. I can't do it.
It's scary. That's why you got to do your research when you're traveling. So
Yeah.
many people don't do that and they go in blindsided.
It's so important that I don't know if she didn't know, but there's the case with the famous basketball player from the women's basketball player that got stuck in Russia because she got caught with like I think drugs on her or vape, and they detained. And she went to jail for like 2-3 years, like hard time, like went there, like what? And
Out
they
now?
had to. She's out. They traded her for like a Russian spy, which I was like, I don't get that trade.
I don't understand that trade, but okay.
I was like, so we're gonna trade a basketball player for a Russian spy.
That's not a great trade-off.
No. I think it was a Russian spy.
I think it was too, because
I think it was something like that, yeah.
on the show, I think Sean Ryan was talking about it on his podcast or something. I think it was a Russian spy.
It was an arms dealer. So yeah, so she was traded for an arms dealer. So his name was Victor Bout. Brittany Griner, that's who the basketball player was exchanged on December 8th of 2022 for a one-on-one prisoner exchange, and they traded her for a Russian arms dealer.
Wow.
It would sound like it's just a weird trade. I don't want to say an even trade because I don't think anybody should have to trade
Right.
people, but like it's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
What about those immigrants who are trying to escape persecution? Are we just going to send them back or to their war-torn country to die? It's a significant and complex issue. Immigrants fleeing persecution, war, and violence often find themselves in a terrifying and dangerous situation, and it's heartbreaking to think of sending them back to environments where their lives could be at risk. International law, such as the 1951 Refugee Convention, generally provides that people fleeing persecution should not be sent back to a country where they face harm. This is known as the principle of non-refoulement. I think I said that right? Many countries have asylum systems to assess claims and offer protection to those in genuine need. Still, unfortunately, these systems can be overwhelmed, politicized, or under-resourced, leaving many people in limbo or vulnerable. Sending people back to war-torn countries where they may face violence, human rights violations, or even death seems inhumane, especially when they are seeking refuge from situations that are beyond our control. The challenge is balancing national security concerns, resources, and humanitarian obligations. It's a tough conversation, but at its core, it's about respecting the dignity and safety of human life and ensuring that the most vulnerable are treated with compassion.
I just want to ask you guys, what's your personal take on sending people back to those countries that are trying to escape from people, being killed? Essentially, do you agree from those immigrants should be separated from other immigrants and they should be allowed to stay because it's life or death?
I see it kind of two ways. So I see it in one way that obviously we should consider what they're going back to. I see that totally flipped and reversed to what if an American went to another country and the only place they called home was like a husband that beat them or parents that beat them or dad that raped her or whatever. So I see it as it could go both ways. So like if we assume everyone else's problems per se, we would have to do that for not just them, but even like I don't know. I feel like in a way, like I get it. It's horrible looking at them going back to those other countries, but at the same time, I wonder like how do we assume that America, out of all the countries in the world, has to assume that responsibility? So I get it from both sides. I get it that like it sounds terrible sending them there, but it's also just because they live in a horrible or they came from a horrible country doesn't mean we're responsible to make up for the fact that it's horrible there, because it could be the same way. A girl, the only place she has to go is this place and it's terrible, or whoever it may be. But then I also see it as, where do you go from there? Like, I mean, I think they were looking at it as it's not our responsibility, which truth be told, I don't think it is our responsibility, because if we took the responsibility of every person that was in a horrible country that does terrible things to people, we could absorb, like, I don't know, way more people than we have the infrastructure or can support. So, like, I see it as we're not responsible for that. I understand the point of being compassionate 100%, but I don't think that we're responsible. Like, why is America responsible out of the entire world for absorbing these people that are in these horrible places? I don't know.
I think
That's
some
true. I
of
couldn't have said
it
it better.
I think some of it has to do with the fact that the US is partially responsible for some of the countries being the way they are because they've contributed to it to an extent. For example, in the Middle East, we were selling them weapons that they were using against us, Al Qaeda and all stuff like that. We're killing those people and those people trying to get away based because we played a contributing factor, such as selling weapons to them, and I'm like, why are we selling the people over there weapons when they're just gonna use them in terrorist groups, you know what I'm saying? So like stuff like that, I feel like that's why I said it's not just black and white where it's like, well, why should we take on all this? I feel like some of them, yes, and in some situations it is true. Why are we taking on certain people if we haven't affected them? But in a way we also have. Like America has been known in the past for sticking our head into business it's not our business. For example, the Vietnam War. We stuck our head in that and we had no business coming in there and being like, we're gonna save these people and we're gonna help liberate their country and go for democracy, and it wasn't our fight to fight. It was their fight to fight.
Well, and two, it's like we've funded previously multiple wars. I think that as administrations change, their perspective on funding wars change, their perspective on immigrants change. So at the same point, it's like we can't expect every administration to accept responsibility for the carelessness of previous administrations. So I don't know that I don't think with the way things are going that they're going to consider that. They're not going to consider that the previous administrations funded these wars and contributed to the destruction and violence in these countries. I don't think they're going to see it that way. I think they're going to see it as put a stop to that. We don't need to fund these wars. We want to seek peace, which I would love some peace rather than wondering if they're going to release nuclear weapons here. That would be great to not have to worry about. But I don't think they're going to assume responsibility of what we've done previously. I just don't.
And you bringing up us butting in on the Vietnam War where we shouldn't have. It does kind of make me think of recently with like Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Hamas. It kind of blows my mind that the media thinks we should insert ourselves into those wars or
I agree.
that like
I think-
that's okay, but we shouldn't have done that in the past.
I think that the difference was Ukraine asked for help. You see what I'm saying? They actually begged for help. Well, Vietnam did not. We just showed up. But I'd have to go back and verify if Vietnam. I can actually check right now if Vietnam asked for help. But I'm pretty sure they didn't, and we just kind of like went there.
But still, if they're asking for help, we don't have to help them because once we
That's true.
fund that war, we're creating enemies with someone else, whoever's on the other side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a good
So South Vietnam did, but North Vietnam did not. And that was because they were battling at that time. They were having a civil war within themselves between those who wanted to take it for the democracy side wanted to take it and take it over and protect their people, while the North, the kind of prime example of North Korea, the North wanted to be communistic and tyrannical and stuff like that. It's honestly hard to kind of like war is very messy for those who have to fight it rather than those who are in charge and making power plays. It's one of those things where it's like, do we let it become a one-sided slaughter like what happened with Hamas, or do we in the Gaza Strip where they just started slaughtering people because they didn't know who it was, instead of taking the right proper precautions, or do we insert ourselves and stop it? Where does the line drawn? Like, do we just send them supplies and be like, hey, we're not gonna insert ourselves, this is y'all's deal, y'all figure it out? Or because you just don't know, like how Russia's literally trying to annex Ukraine and take over Ukraine so that they can get into the other countries that Ukraine borders. So do we let them do that? Because if we don't let them, then they're potentially trying to take over other countries to become the superpower of the world, which it's so complicated. It's like, that's what I'm saying. That's where America is. How much do we insert ourselves? I shouldn't say should we or should we not, because we do regardless, because we're part of the, what is it called? The flag nation thingy. I can't remember. It's kind of huh? Yeah, the United Nations. I want to say World of Nations, but that's not right. Yes, they're part of the food festival that we love to have here in Jacksonville.
Daphne,
think-
what's your take on it?
I think America often tries to pretend that we're the hero in things. Somebody asks for our help, but I think more than not, we go like Elena was saying, if we don't stand up for the little guy in this match and they lose to the big guy, what is the then outcome? That person has access to what then? And then they can come after us. But we come in and go, we're going to save you. But in reality, we're just trying to save our own butts in the future by stopping them from becoming more powerful.
Creating allies. Yeah.
Right.
But it's like, if Russia were to take Ukraine and now have access to more supplies, more weapons, more whatever, the likelihood of us then being the next point of attack for them is increasing, and we're giving them more power. First, we shut them down, we shut down the ability for them to get that stuff. Now we might have protect ourselves in the future, but we bill it as we're helping the Ukraine, yay us. But that's not it. We're selfish as a nation, realistically, or smart. I guess it depends on how you look at it. We're either protecting ourselves, but
I can't quite figure it out if we're smart or we crazy. I can't quite figure it out if I'm being honest. Because
Bit of both. Remember, it's not black and white.
yeah, it's very gray. So what is your take, Daphne, on deporting these folks back to their countries they came from, even if they are harsh conditions?
well, I think you kind of touched on it. I get Helena's point that we've made it harder for some people, but I don't think we created terrorist nations. I don't think we created nations that don't have good water, or where women have no rights, where gay people have no rights and are killed in the streets for being who they are. Women have no ability to even walk outside without being covered head. I don't think we created that, or religious persecution places. I don't think we created that. And at the end of the day, there truly is only so much space and so much resources that we have as a nation, and we have so many people that of our own that need that. We have so many homeless people, so many people who have mental health issues that can't be productive members of society, who are struggling and on the streets because of it. So it is a hard thing, because, we, as a successful, supposedly, nation, we want to help people that are less, who are in danger. But at what point do we draw that line and worry about our own? Do we have enough for our own? When you're on the plane, they say, put your own face mask on before you help your neighbor. I don't think we do that, like, at all, as a nation. We don't make sure that our people are taken care of before we help everybody else.
Yeah.
But even if we say, okay, come in, I think there still needs to be proper documentation of somebody coming in.
I agree.
And why. Like, where are you coming from and why are we letting you stay here? You can't just fly in, walk off a plane, and go about your merry way with no paperwork. I mean, I can't do that as somebody that was born here. I've got an ID. I'm expected to show it when I'm at an airport. So I think at the bare minimum, if we're letting people in and letting them stay, they still have to come legally.
Yeah.
Whether they're under an asylum situation or not. The open border thing, just, it has so many other issues that it leads to. But how many people we let in under that, what the limit is, how bad their situation has to be, that's a really hard set of checklists you have to be able to come up with.
Right.
What is the threshold?
Go ahead, Helena.
I was gonna say, I totally agree with you. I won't say we can't choose. It's kind of hard to word this. We definitely have an impact on other countries, for sure, because America is a world superpower, and we do affect a lot of people, especially with our economy. We touch a lot of people. We do. And people, but like, if you've ever studied history, you would know we have created, like, the war that's happening within the Gaza Strip in Israel. We started that war. I want you to understand that we did. Our actions had an effect on that, because I think it was, I can't remember if it was World War I or World War II, where with Hitler, after, that happened and the Holocaust happened. Essentially, the Jewish people lost their land. They didn't have a place to go, after everything that happened. So we went to Israel and like, okay, we're just going to put you here. And then we pushed all those people that had already been living there, right, out of that holy land, and just plopped them there without asking, was it okay? And we just decided, we don't want you, so we're going to put you right here. And we started that religious war between the Gaza Strip and the natives, essentially, that live in the Gaza Strip, that were always there, and the Jewish people. But it was one of those things where it was like the Gaza Strip before them were, I believe, the Hebrews, but they lost their land, and then the Gaza people that were in the Gaza Strip then took over, and they'd been there for hundreds of years already. So we kind of, like, I wouldn't say we started it, like, we antagonized it. Like, we definitely made, like, put chess pieces next to each other that probably shouldn't have been next to each other, and it had just been festering, especially in the Middle East. Anyone who knows, Middle East is, because it's such a old land and it has such deep history, there's a lot of like deep rooted traditions and cultures and stuff like that, just maybe touching it or tipping it or having something happen to it can throw it into chaos. I mean, look at Israel now. They're committing the same genocide against the Gazian people, the people that live in Gaza, right? That was committed against themselves. They're just murdering people, whether kids, children, hospitals, they're just killing them. No rhyme or reason. Just because, oh, we thought Hamas was there. So you killed a bunch of kids in Israel. To be more precise, Netanyahu, who's trying to keep power, took over the military, and even though I have family that lives in Israel, they don't agree with it. They can't speak out about it because if they do, they'll get killed.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, do you say something? Do you stop it? What can you do? Because you, as a citizen, you have no power. You know what I'm saying?
The last year has been wild, honestly. Like, I used to see the donations that we'd send to Ukraine and stuff like that. And back to kind of both of y'all's points, Helena and Daphne, is we want to try to play the hero, right? But we really aren't. And then we don't always put our citizens first. In the last administration, we almost never put our citizens first. So, like, all those donations to Ukraine and all that, while all those people are still living in tents in North Carolina and all that mess, that was a mess, and that was nowhere near right. Anyone could tell me would justify that, because now the truth is coming out that they were getting kickbacks from that. Like, he said himself, he never got all of that money that supposedly we sent over there. He never got all of that. He only got some of that. I heard that with my own ears in an interview, and I'm just like, that's what bothers me in terms of we don't even, that is a harsh condition. Like, those people were dying out there, literally freezing to death. There's still half of these people are living in tents, and we're sending millions up to Ukraine, and we give $750 to these people that have just lost their homes. That is completely out of touch and in no way, shape, or form right. There's
And
nothing,
only if they can fill out the form online when they have no.
because you have no, like, so as far as America goes with that, we don't put our people first. And I mean, I get it.
Because it's not about our people. It's about money. Think about it. We're wasting money on our own citizens. They have nothing to give back. But if we pour all this money, it's an investment into Ukraine, and they win, they can perhaps pay us back on the investment. See what I'm saying? War makes money for certain people based on how you play it.
Sure. But my whole point is, if we sent that money to them, they didn't receive all the money. It was like over 100. How much was it, Daphne? Do y'all remember? It was like over $100 million, and they got like 70 of it.
Are we talking to Ukraine, or are we talking to those in North Carolina?
Ukraine.
This is to
Oh,
Ukraine.
Ukraine. Okay, yeah, so sorry.
North Carolina. It was basically left up to citizens to help them. Which, I mean, when Trump got in office, they did start helping. That they did put people up there. But the things like that's one situation that I will say, like, if somebody were to tell me or to ask me per se, if we help these people over here for this war or whatever, or do we take care of our people first? All day long, our people first. All day long. People are losing their lives. They are literally freezing to death. That is so out of touch to send all that money over there and not to help our citizens first. All day long. So for a situation like that, I will be completely honest, it immediately just takes any other considerations, unless there was something that was like present day. It takes all my consideration out of prioritizing those countries over us. And I feel like that's the way it should be, is always put our people first. Always. I think any other country would do the same.
I agree. It's like I always see these commercials on TV about like donations for veterans and stuff like that, and it's like I feel like those are people who fought for our country, literally lost limbs, etc. They need,
or are permanently mentally ill.
Yeah, and we have to have organizations like that to raise money for them. Like, we as a country can't help them ourselves, like, but we're sending all this money over to help somebody else as well. It's
I was
just
gonna say,
sad.
I think right now, aren't they doing away with the VA? So, like, if they're, and I think they had talked about getting rid of it, and during the Trump administration, they were like, we should just get rid of it. You're going to cut it. So a lot of these VA people aren't going to get any help or anything like that. And I'd have to look up the article to see. But if they don't want to spend money on them, I get why they're sending it all to Ukraine anyway, because they're like, well, we're going to, like the DODA, we're going to already defund this program. So why send more money towards it? You know?
I know that they're doing away with the VA. My papa treats them religiously. I can't see them doing away with the VA. My thing too with the military and all of our government officials, it kills me to see not only we pay them pennies on a dollar, This goes for teachers, police officers, military, all of our government officials in terms of like the folks that are out there protecting citizens, they get paid pennies on the dollar. Meanwhile, these people that actually work in the government offices, such as like, up in Congress or whatever, they are, pushing things that will give them a kickback. And then after these people go overseas and are mentally destroyed, we want to offer them like disability, a grand a month, and then offer them free health care, which is trash health care, by the way.
So
Ridiculous.
it's not that they're trying to defund it, excuse me. Is they cut 83,000 VA healthcare workers' jobs. And that is the problem. So now they're expecting people to run with, they already barely were getting by with what they had, and now they're expecting people to You're expecting something to function without 83,000. Think about that. 83,000 workers are being laid off.
Staff. So how are they doing that?
I don't know. It was published. Bernie Sanders spoke on it about 2 weeks ago.
VA plans to cut 80,000 jobs for efficiencies. But that's the thing, though, is like, what's the nitty gritty details on this?
Yeah, we'd have to look into it more thoroughly because I'd have to watch some of the videos on what they're talking about. But they had talked about it on the news that they were laying off all these that's what I'm saying earlier. I'm back to my earlier point. They're cutting a bunch of government workers, and some of those jobs, like I think one was one of them they cut was the weather balloon, and the weather balloon collects data each day about the weather that's supposed to be happening, in the area, right? That's how most weathermen get their job, get their data. Well, they're cutting the balloon person, and that means that they're only releasing the balloon. I think like they said like once a week or something like that, if they have time to do it. And I'm like, so how else are they supposed to get their data? So how are we supposed to know the weather? Like, so we're just not gonna have a weather segment? Like, there's only so much certain things can do.
Yeah, I would hope that the weathermen have their own kind of stuff to gather that, like the satellites and all.
Yeah, but there's certain things that you can only tell by physically being in there. Sometimes technology does not work all the time,
For
So,
sure.
and and anyone who listens to the weather in Florida knows that if we didn't have weather balloon, our weather guessing would be way worse. And we know what Florida is bipolar, so imagine even less data than what we already have trying to
That
predict
would
the
not be
weather in
good.
Florida.
I don't even listen to the weatherman.
It's the hurricane. Don't worry about it. It's not gonna hit us.
I watch an independent weather guy who announces storms like 2 weeks before the news ever covers it. Mike's weather page. He's amazing. I don't know how he gets his weather, but the guy is more than accurate every time.
What's his last name? It's Mike. I feel like I've heard of him.
I'm not sure of his last name, but
familiar.
his thing is Mike's weather page.
He's on. They always talk about it on one of the radio stations. I feel like Mike Weatherman.
Yeah, so in terms of like the government providing the information about the weather, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know what Mike uses, but it's probably not from the government, and I would trust him over any of these news channels all day long.
It's gonna bother me. I feel like I know a guy named Mike.
But as far as like the government jobs being cut and stuff, I hope that they're able to be efficient. And I mean, I don't know how that is in terms of the VA, but I know there
Mike
are.
Burrish.
Okay, that's him. Yeah.
With W. Jax.
He's awesome. But I don't know, I will tell you this. From gathering medical records from the VA or VA lien as a litigation paralegal, it was an absolute nightmare. So like they've taken forever for as long as I can remember. So I don't know if this is going to slow it down. Is it going to be a different process to speed it up? I would hope that they would be able to service their employee or their, patients and do their thing.
I already know that it's going to take. I remember the Trump administration already cut a bunch of IRS workers. I know, like, if you hadn't filed your tax already, you might as well check out. It's going to be a little while before you get any tax return money because they're short-staffed on people. So, like,
think about this: how Biden hired 80,000 agents to monitor our transactions and all these other things. First of all, how do you just hire 80,000 people on a whim? I don't know, but some of these people were doing like absolutely nothing. So, like, as far as efficiency and cutting staff, if you're not doing your job.
oh yeah, no, I agree. If you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, obviously get cut. Like you ain't getting paid to sit on the clock, punch the clock like that.
And I'm hoping that they'll take that money and spread it amongst the government workers that don't get paid enough.
I just hope they didn't cut efficient workers that were also doing what they were supposed to be doing,
That too, yeah.
So what is Trump going to do about immigrants trying to flee persecution? President Donald Trump has implemented several policies affecting immigrants seeking refuge from persecution. Termination of temporary protected status, or TPS. On February 1st, 2025, the administration ended TPS for approximately 350,000 Venezuelans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Nicaraguans. Effective April 24th, 2025, this decision revokes the temporary legal status granted to these individuals, potentially exposing them to deportation if they remain in the U.S. The use of the Alien Enemies Act. President Trump invoked this law, last used during World War II, to deport over 200 Venezuelans accused of gang affiliations without judicial hearings. This action has sparked legal debates regarding due process rights. Aggressive deportation practices. The administration has adopted low-profile tactics, including automatic and secretive deportations, mainly targeting Venezuelans. Reports indicate that individuals are expelled without adequate legal proceedings, raising significant human rights concerns. These measures have drawn criticism for human rights organizations, legal experts, and some political figures who argue they violate international obligations and constitutional protections for asylum seekers. Policies have led to increased uncertainty and fear among immigrant communities, especially those fleeing persecution. Okay, so what is the Alien Enemies Act? The Alien Enemies Act is a 1798 law, originally part of the Alien and Sedition Acts. It grants the U.S. government the authority to detain and deport citizens of foreign countries in which the U.S. is at war or who are considered a threat to national security. Under this law, the president can order the removal or internment of alien enemies, non-citizens who are nationals of a country that the U.S. has declared war against. This law was primarily used during World War II when many people of Japanese, German, and Italian descent were detained. In more recent years, it has been brought up in the context of national security concerns, including actions against individuals accused of ties to terrorist organizations or other threats. For instance, during the Trump administration, the law was used to target and deport some Venezuelan nationals suspected of being involved in gang activities under claims that Venezuela is a national security threat due to its ties with adversarial nations. The law raises significant concerns about due process and civil liberties because it allows for the detention or deportation of individuals without a formal trial, often based on broad national security claims. In March 2025, President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to deport Venezuelan nationals associated with the, now I'm probably going to butcher this, with the Tren de Aragua gang, labeling them as part of a hybrid criminal state invading the U.S. This act, historically during wartime, allows the president to detain and deport non-citizens from enemy nations. However, this action faced legal challenges. On March 15, 2025, U.S. District Judge James E., again, probably going to butcher his last name, Boasberg, issued a temporary block stating that individuals should have the opportunity to contest their designation as gang members before deportation. Despite this order, deportation flights continued, leading to further legal disputes. Judge Boasberg criticized the administration's actions, calling them awfully frightening and incredibly troublesome. The administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act has sparked debate. Some argue it's an overreach of executive power, especially since the law was intended for wartime use and against state actors, not criminal organizations. Senator Rand Paul expressed concerns, highlighting potential big legal issues and emphasizing that the Bill of Rights applies to all, not just citizens. Additionally, critics warn that invoking such laws could erode civil liberties and set a concerning precedent for future administrations. As of March 24th, 2025, the legal battle continues, which appeals and discusses the law's application and constitutionality ongoing. And now I'm going to hand it off to Devin.
Okay. I'm actually going to go in opposite order of the question so we know what we're talking about here. So we're going to discuss Trump's executive order titled Protecting the American People Against Invasion. What are the implications of the indefinite suspension of the U.S. Refugees Admissions Program initiated on January 20th, 2025 for refugees worldwide and U.S. foreign policy? The indefinite suspension of the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program initiated on January 2025 means that refugee entry into the United States is halted unless explicitly approved on a case-by-case basis by the Secretaries of State and Homeland Security. What that means is we're not accepting immigrants unless they are approved on a case-by-case basis. The suspension is based on concerns over national security, public safety, and resource allocation. This decision shifts refugee resettlement authority towards state and local jurisdictions and mandates a review every 90 days to determine if resumption aligns with U.S. interest. So basically, off of what I gathered, we have not just accepted, we have too many immigrants here. I would say accepted, but we've got so many that came in illegally that it's not really accepted. It's more like whoever's here, we've got too many of them. So they're putting a halt on that unless it's case by case basis to accept any immigrants coming into our country. All right. How does Trump's administrative order titled Protecting the American People Against Invasion impact the enforcement of immigration laws and the roles of federal and local agencies? There will be no public services provided to illegal aliens. They are adding more federal and local agents and officers to enforce these changes within the executive order. This document also establishes Homeland Security forces, task forces to dismantle smuggling networks. Order directs agencies to identify and remove unauthorized individuals, impose civil fines, and expedite removals. It enhances the role of federal and local agencies in enforcing immigration laws and national security measures. What are the implications of the indefinite suspensions of the U.S. refugee admissions program initiated on January 20th for refugees worldwide and U.S. foreign policies? Is it considered indefinitely if they're reviewing it every 90 days?
Hard to say when it comes to the government. They take forever.
I don't know that he's indefinite. Okay, the indefinite suspension of the U.S. refugee admissions program initiated on January 20th, which means that the refugee entry to the United States is halted unless explicitly approved. Refugees may only be admitted if the Secretaries of State and Homeland Security jointly determine their entry aligns with national interests and does not pose security risks. The order instructs federal agencies to explore legal avenues for increasing state and local government involving in refugee placement decisions. Every 90 days, the Secretary of Homeland Security must submit a report evaluating whether resuming refugee admissions aligns with U.S. interest. The decision could strain diplomatic relations with allies involved in refugee resettlement efforts. So basically, if we will not accept your people, it's going to cause you to probably retaliate in some form. It may shift the burden of global refugee assistance to other nations and impact U.S. influence in international humanitarian affairs. This is a very interesting topic, okay? And I've kind of already put my input here. How does the new requirement for immigrants to provide their social media handles when applying for green cards, citizenships, and other benefits enhance security measures, and what are the potential privacy concerns? So basically, on the new visa application or going forward for visas or any sort of refugees, immigrants coming over, whatever, you have to provide your social media handle. Okay, and that brings me to my next point. By analyzing applicants' social media activity, USCIS seeks to identify inconsistencies of the applicant's identification or affiliations that may pose risk to national security or public safety. The concerns for those applying are that it will expand government surveillance, data protection, censorship of social media activity until approved for applications, and lead to misunderstandings or misinterpretations of their social media content. One thing I want to point out here is you are only required to provide your social media handle name, which is, by the way, public information anyways. So basically, the government knows all that we do as citizens anyways. They're going to find out what you do regardless. That does not require them to download or produce their social media content. So basically, if you have a public profile, everything you have is public anyways. It doesn't matter if it's going to the government or Joe or Sue or whomever. If you've posted it publicly, it's out there for the entire world to see on the whole internet. So that doesn't really matter. I mean, the social media handle thing, I understand what they're saying. These concerns will expand government surveillance. The government surveils us anyways. Data protection, nothing's ever deleted. Censorship of social media activity until approved means basically they will post indifferently than they normally would to try and, oh my gosh, I gotta obey all the rules until I get approved. So I don't really understand that to an extent, but I've also seen a lot of different things than most people have, which will bring me to my next point. Again, they're not required to download their social media content and produce it. They're only providing the social media handles. I think it's a good faith effort to see if you will tell the truth personally. Again, all of this information is discoverable, what they're required to give to the government. Your social media handles, whatever's publicly on their profile, anyone in the world could see it. So I don't see why that's a big deal. Just real quick, I want to touch on this. As a litigation paralegal, I had to download my client's social media accounts all across the board: Instagram, TikTok, social or Snapchat, Facebook, because a judge ordered that in discovery as a result of an automobile crash. That's a completely different scenario. I had to pull each and every conversation that was saved. And when you see what is downloadable from your social media activity, I promise you, your postings will change. It is more than terrifying. I mean, I've never been the same since. That I think is crazy. But the reason why is because this girl claimed that she couldn't do X, Y, and Z, and yet she's on stage competing in a bodybuilding competition, lifting weights in very high heels. So how can you claim that you can't walk to your mailbox, but you can pose on a stage and do workouts on the stage? So she kind of earned that for herself. That's completely different than just saying, here, this is my Instagram name, whatever. I'm sure if they go on there and it's so different than the kids that end up killing somebody at their school that people slapped him on the wrist for. There was a kid in Callahan, Florida that would post all the time with pistols and such. You're 15 years old. You don't even have a legal right to a pistol. So I'm sure if they go on there and see some sort of like horrific content, they're probably going to be a little concerned, and rightfully so. How do y'all feel about that?
I agree with you. I mean, it's all out there anyway.
I mean, I guess for people that don't know what the government does and how they spy on you, I guess maybe you would be concerned, but I feel like there's not much privacy anymore. There's really
Yeah.
just not. There's not. Like, if they want it, they're going to find it.
Well, and realistically, any of our smart enemies aren't going to post anything publicly that's going to target them. But like us as Americans, I've heard of people not get hired or get fired because their employer or their prospective employer Googled their name and went, "Oh, let's see what this person's about." Watched some videos and went, "Yeah, no, you're not representing us. You're
Yeah,
not going to represent us."
100%
Yeah.
terminated for that.
There, just on a separate note, there were stories of a teacher. I guess he had particular hobbies in his house. It's not like he went and posted about it, but he would post his artwork that he created, and he would tell them how he made it. He used to like use his butt to paint artwork. As a teacher, and he got let go. He got let go because of it, and I was like, "That's insane." And then there have been teachers that were let go because they posted pictures of them on vacation, not at school, in their bikini on the beach. Because they were over, because but you have to remember, people are like, I don't understand what that You have to remember, you're also a public servant. You represent that image of public. You can't be, you either make a private account or something like that where they can't get it into. But there was a debate with that teacher with the bikini because she was on a private account and a student got into her thing and was looking at it, and the parent got mad at her, and that's why she got fired.
I've seen a lot. Like during COVID, there was this lady who was HR at this company, and she said something along the lines of, I can't remember if it was a physical threat, I will kill you, or it was, I will hurt you, basically, if you didn't get the vaccine. Well, she's posting on this on TikTok. Obviously a public profile, just like we just talked about. If you're posting it public, you want the world to see. You must want the world to see. So her employer, of course, got a hold of it, and she was terminated. And this girl gonna create some boohoo sob story for TikTok about, oh, I got fired. You're literally HR. You know what can be posted. You know what's right. You know that you can't make threats like that for the public. What were you doing? You earned this for yourself. So it does determine if you're accepted, I guess, into a country now. It does determine your jobs. I mean, I guess rightfully so, because it shows your personal behavior, what you're proud enough to post online for the world to see.
Yeah, and I can't remember what it was, but I thought I saw something on the news about some kid that went to or threatened to go shoot up his school. He was talking about it on some TikTok video or live. So it's like,
Yeah. And they just get a slap on the wrist, and then the kid blows up the school and they wonder, well, why did he do that? Well, because you didn't punish him. You should have. You know that there was like 2 shootings literally here near where I live in the last 5 years, and it was kids that had posted. They had found a snapshot of a Snapchat conversation with a kid about threatening to come to school, and they just slapped him on the wrist.
Well, I would say it depends on where your circumstances. I went to LaVille School of the Arts, and during my school, everyone has a period in their life when they go through school and like certain things would happen. For me, it was bomb threats. There was lots of bomb threats happening in my school, and I actually knew the person who made it, and they literally shut the team down, and SWAT came, and she literally got a record. She like went to juvie and everything, and they made it. They charged her like a criminal because she threatened to shoot up the school on social media.
So as far as like looking at what you post online, what you're proud enough or comfortable enough to show to the world, I don't find an issue with like your Instagram handle. It's just your name.
not either, because like you said, if you're private, then can't really look into it. And if you're bold or proud enough to post that publicly, then
The government can't see what's private. They can't get in your social media profile. I don't believe any of that.
I don't
Nothing
either.
on the internet's ever truly deleted. And so I don't know. What do y'all think about that? Do you think it's good or bad, or it's, oh my God, they're discriminating against these people that are applying to come here because they want their social media handles? No, they probably soon will put that on your employment application.
Plus, I mean, social media has become such a big part of society as it is. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time, I guess.
I feel like, when you can't come here and expect it. I'm sorry. I just feel like in this day and age, and you just can't expect it unless you completely go off the grid and you just don't use anything. There's no way to not have any type of trail or paper trail in terms of technology.
And
Right?
the more that we use social media, I feel like the more we forfeit our privacy. Like the more comfortable we are posting all these things we do, what's exclusive anymore? So I don't know.
One of the
But
reasons I stay away from it. I try my best to not be on it. Like
yeah.
diarrhea. I feel like when I get on social media, it's like trying to process diarrhea of the mouth sometimes. So one of the questions we had was, what are the effects of reduction? What are the effects of the reduction in the diversity visa allocations for the fiscal year of 2025? And how does this impact applicants from various countries? The reduction in the DV allocations for the fiscal year of 2025 is expected to have various significant implications for prospective immigrants. The DV program is calculated to promote immigration from countries that are usually underrepresented, and they award visas through a lottery system. The reduction number of the DV slots available limits the overall pool of visas, making competition among qualified applicants more intense. The constraint is more than likely to result in longer wait times and decreased odds for selection, specifically for those with lower representation, because the allocation system inherently considers applicants' country of origin when determining eligibility. The contradiction in the overall numbers of the DVs have several ripple effects that on the chain migration dynamics, thereby changing long-term migration trends. And then, how does the automatic extension of the permanent residence card validity to 36 months effective September 10th, 2024 affect lawful permanent residents and the renewal process?
Helena, let me make sure I understand this right. Permanent residents have to renew every third. What does this mean?
Affect lawful permanent residents. Essentially, it says, how does the automatic extension of the permanent residence card validity? So, like, essentially, like they're when they come and they become permanent residents, right? Or that are here. It's probably talking about how long, because you have to renew that card. It's like a driver's license. You have to go renew that, right? How does it? It was effective. It says September 10th of 2024 affect lawful and permanent residents and the renewal process. So it's essentially just how does it affect the process? Does it change?
Is a permanent residence is obviously different than a visa. So the permanent resident card, you have to renew it every 36 months?
I think the permanent resident card is the green card.
Yes, it is a green card.
That's what it is. So it's just another word for the green card. So essentially saying, how does the automatic extension of a green card, if this new thing that they're introducing, will it affect everything? So I'm just going to go, instead of permanent resident card, I'm going to say green card, because I feel like that's what people are more familiar with. The automatic extension of the green card is valid up to 36 months. As of effective September 10th, it represents an important policy change with administrative practical outcomes for the green card residents. Usually, there are some PR cards subject to renewal every 10 years, but under the U.S. immigration regulations, however, the extension aims to alleviate administrative jams. So essentially, what it is it's trying to be more. It's trying to act like as an oil in the machine to make things flow easier, because they tend to get bogged down by how many people are trying to become permanent residents. Is what it's sounding like.
So basically, just go ahead and extend the guys that already got the card. They're here.
Yeah, they've already been approved. So like, why make it a renewal every time unless there's broke a law?
I think that's fair.
All right, so I know it's been a long, long ride throughout this whole video, and I'm sure there was a lot of information dumping for some of y'all. Hopefully this time, like our last video, we're gonna try to put some timestamps in, y'all can hear what you want to hear. This is the end of our podcast. Thank you so much, Daphne, for joining us. If you have any questions, comments, feedbacks, concerns, please let us know. And then for our listeners, leave it in the comment section. In our next episode, we'll try to answer every question if we're able to. Our next episode is going to be focusing on tariffs and the recent tariffs that are being imposed on Canada, the US, and China. And please stay tuned for more information on that. Follow us on TikTok and subscribe to our channel on YouTube and stay up to date with what we've got going on. We are at Desktop5 and on TikTok and YouTube. And we really appreciate you guys for listening in on our conversation. We look forward to chatting in the future.